Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and today we're going to be doing our February 1st, 2022 library update for the SideGame Library. All these games have added to the library back in January, and these are going to be pre-orders as well as upgrades, new games, expansions. We'll talk about it all here very briefly for each of these things. Now, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow, and for those of you already subscribed, thank you so much for the support. All that being said up front, let's go ahead and dive into some games with our library update and see what entered the library. Now, the first game I want to talk about is Obsession, and this is the useful box. This contains a bunch of component redos, as well as upgrades, as well as some extra promo cards for Obsession. This is to replace a lot of the things in the game that maybe had some issues, whether it be balancing or actually just component issues, some things degrading and wearing. So this is a great box. If you do own Obsession, make sure you grab this from the Niantic Games website. Up next, we have the Kickstarter for Dice Tower. This came in, and we had Promo Pack D that we ordered. That came with a lot of promos that we've put into the games, and one of those promos was for Etherfields. Now, this promo in particular I thought was really neat because it took all of the other Awakened Realms properties and put them into card forms, whether it be action cards or items, so you can actually use them in your Etherfields campaign. What a great idea. That's the Promo Pack D for the Dice Tower Kickstarter. Then we went to Etsy to get a couple of things. First one, we got a new metal coin set. This is actually for Concordia that already exists in our library. The reason that I got these, though, was I was using Seven Wonders coins in Concordia, and so I needed new coins for the new copy of Seven Wonders, so I actually took them from Concordia and then replaced them with these. They're very efficient for the price, and they work well. Next up, we have some markers for underwater cities. They're nice acrylic, very flat, chunky, and they feel really nice when you put them on the board. Nice slap on the table. I really like these in comparison to the 3D printed ones. 3D printed ones are a little awkward, the submarines that they have for those, so I really like the way that these feel and they look. So these are the acrylic player markers for underwater cities. Up next, we have all of the games that enter the library and their expansions. First off, we have Witchstone. This game here has you creating a concoction of potions as you put tiles onto this little cauldron, and you'll be using the symbols on those tiles to take extra actions. You want to line them all up so you're getting a bunch of bonuses and trying to pair them appropriately so you can get multiple bonuses on bonuses for both of the different actions you're doing. You got a bunch of little mini games going on all at once, and it's a fun experience. I love the way that the different tiles will come out of your pot and you have a lot of selection, but it's also up to you from that first turn to decide how you want to start stacking those bonus actions. The next game that we have here is Tanner's Trail. This is a Martin Wallace game. That's a reworking of it, and this is a Kickstarter version of the game with lots of little expansions. But the core of this game is you are trying to earn money and then use that money to turn it into victory points. And you do this through finding these locations. Some of them are face up and they'll have these materials on them that you'll sell, but others will be face down. You can use these little cards to influence and look at those face down tiles. I really like this mechanism because you're able to really get some insider information here and jack up the price and really ruin somebody's day or have an excellent day yourself. There's also this great little mechanism that makes it that even if you lose the auction, you get a little kickback from supporting whatever you decided to start with one of those special cards. So I like this modification and this blind auctioning. I also think the time track is pretty cool with the way that you use time to actually take all the resources out of these areas. That's Tanner's Trail. We also got a new edition of Wits and Wagers. It's a Vegas baby. Figured it was time for a new version of this in the library, get some new questions in there, as well as a nice addition. And this one comes with lots of cool poker chips and new ways that you can change it to add new forms of betting with this great mat that comes out. Everything else is exactly the same, so if you wanted to play the regular Wits and Wagers, you totally can, but this gives us some more options for actually playing the game, and I'm excited. I think this has a lot of great things here. So that's Wits and Wagers. It's Vegas, baby. Up next, we have the expansion for Tehkenu. This is Time of Seth here, and Time of Seth is actually great. I love what this adds to the game. It really emphasizes the use of the turn order, so the Mott phase is a bit more important, as well as increases the potency of the Pillars actions. So what it does is it adds a new Seth board here, and the Seth board has a place where you can build more buildings. So now your buildings are a little bit more tight as well, so you're going to have to be producing a lot more bread to feed your people. With that being said, though, you also get extra occasional victory points, more bonus actions based on the dice you take, and you also get these permanent negative tokens. But this is really cool because every time you take this, you're also going to be putting out these special pillar tiles that will go into that area where you place the pillars that give you amazing bonuses. So it's going to incentivize you to actually build these pillars because the bonuses are pretty dang amazing. Getting new tech cards, putting out free buildings, taking extra actions, incredible. I also like the permanent negative points from these blood tokens for exploring, and then whenever you pass in turn order, you can use a new resource called Priests to take an additional extra amazing bonus. So it adds an even bigger incentive to making sure that the turn order is something that you're caring about. Lots of things to love in this expansion, and I think this is a winner. I don't think I ever play without it. Our next game here is Air, Land, and Sea, Critters at War. This is the new art edition for Air, Land, and Sea, but still keeps that amazing gameplay content. So this is going to be for those people that are a little turned off by maybe the original theming, but I like both of them. I think this game is amazing. It's recently featured in my top 100. Incredible game. That's Air, Land, and Sea, Critters at War. Next, we got the expansion for Coconuts. I love this dexterity game, also featured on the top 100, and I think that this game is amazing. And Coconuts Duo allows you to play the game at 6 players. It adds some new components in the form of extra catapult monkeys that you can use to flip around, and it comes with 2-player mode as well as the new 6-player mode, and extra special cards. So these add you new abilities that you can play with, which is awesome. Now, a funny thing about this, though, I actually got this off of eBay, and they actually sent me the wrong game. They sent me the original Coconuts, so they had to resend all the components that were in the base game that were not actually received. So the cards and the rules, which is great because I just ended up getting more cups and more monkeys. So I just essentially doubled my Coconuts Duo content while still getting all of the extra stuff. So it was kind of funny that this negative experience became a positive one. But excited that we have all these options now for Coconuts. That's Coconuts Duo. Our next game we're talking about is Merchants of the Dark Road, where you play as merchants trying to sell goods for money, as also deliver things for influence. At the end of the game, you'll compare your influence to the cash that you've made, and whatever's lowest, that's how many points you actually get. You use this interesting rondelle mechanism as you move around the town, picking up items, selling those items to people, having those people jump on your carts, and then taking them to the different outlying towns. That's my favorite part about the game, is the outlying towns. I think it's fun that you can always join somebody's voyage in order to get a little bit of extras. So you're getting a bit of passive income based on the actions of the other players. You're also going to be watching them and seeing where they want to go so that you can pick people appropriately so you can get some free deliveries in. It works well, and it's a cool game. Up next is Mind Management. This is a hidden movement game where one player plays as a recruiter trying to grab all sorts of people into their organization of mind management, and everybody else plays rogue agents trying to find that recruiter player. I love this game. I think it's so well done. We got the deluxe edition because I did think we needed to make sure we had the best version of this game, and this one here has you playing 2 objective-based systems at the same time, and I love that about this. It's not just one person running. They have something they're doing, as well as the other person who is trying to find them and trying to gather information. I love that the way that the recruiter plays, every time that they advance in their situation, when they're getting closer to winning, they're giving more and more information to the other player. I love that about this game, that you're constantly engaged the whole time. You have multiple facets going on, and each player is being really thoughtful about the different choices they're making. So many cool things here, and the shift system also allows you to change up the game and balance the sides as you see fit, but also just adds a bunch of really interesting and it's such well thought out mechanisms to an already incredible core system. So I love Mind Management. A wonderful game. Up next is Detective Club. I was really impressed by this game. This is a combination of a lot of other games, such as Fake Artist Goes to New York and Dixit. You are going to be explaining, based on these cards you're playing, why you know a secret word. And one person obviously doesn't, so it's about trying to figure out who's lying, who's telling the truth, based on those cards they're playing and the explanations they give. It puts a lot of pressures on the players as opposed to the cards, and I love this. It's up to you to perform as well as do your best with the things you're dealt. Love this one. That's Detective Club. Up next, we have Lost Ruins of Arnak Expedition Leaders. This is one I was really excited about. It has a lot of new things to add to Lost Ruins of Arnak in the form of a new staff that's going to allow you to get extra items moved, as well as the different relics at the end of each round, so you're refreshing the market a bit more quickly. You have new research tracks that are going to add new spaces to the game, a little bit of complexity or just variety, and then you have these special player abilities, which I love. They actually are going to change your core deck, and I think that's the best part, because now all your cards in your deck do something really cool, so you have a great tension on using them for their actions or for using them on the spaces on the board. You have a lot of cool strategies you can go to. One that I played recently had you just buying a bunch of items, and you had this cool card where you could immediately add the items you buy to your hand. I love it. There's so many interesting things you can do now, and it allows you to play into all the different facets that already existed in the game. Wonderful expansion. Get this one if you have Lost Ruins of Arnak. That is the Expedition Leaders expansion. Up next, we have Project L, another recently delivered Kickstarter game that is an amazing little engine builder. The way that it works is you have all these little tiles, and you'll be slotting them on these larger tiles. After you finish them by filling up all the spaces, you'll get some sort of reward as well as victory points. It is essentially a race game because the game ends once all the big score point tiles that deck runs out, and then whoever has the most points wins. You have this great satisfying system where on your turn you're either upgrading the pieces you have, using them to fill in puzzles, or taking new puzzles. It's such a great experience, and the Finesse expansion adds a new way to play by adding these round goals essentially that are going to give you extra actions if you complete them, which will guide your play into a different direction. It adds a bit more downtime if you do play with those finesse expansions. That's just something to be aware of, but if you've played the game a lot, it's a great way to shake things up. So that's the finesse expansion and Project L as a whole. The next game is Lost Cities, a two-player head-to-head card game where you're going to be trying to score points by playing cards into columns. Game flow is really straightforward as you're picking up cards and placing them, going from lowest to highest, and you're going to lose some points for each of those journeys that you start, but you also gain them based on how many of the cards you've played in each column. I love this push and pull system. It makes a lot of sense in the way it works, and it's just really clean to play. There's this great commitment of these different columns of when you want to start, if you want to hold off on certain things, and it's all about timing because there is a finite amount of time here. I love the new edition that comes with that 6 additional expansion, and it just adds more tension to an already excellent game. So I love this one. That is Lost Cities. The next game here is Three Sisters. From the same people that brought us Fleet the Dice game, it is a roll and write game of dice drafting and farming. On your turn, you're going to be picking one of the dice that's on this action rondelle. You're actually going to organize them kind of similarly to Pulsar, where you group them by the number and they populate the spaces. So you're going to pick the dice and then you'll carry out the action that the die is on, as well as the area on your little board in front of you that matches the number of the die. So both of those things matter. After the round, you're going to be triggering an event, which includes things like upgrading in your shed or raining on your different farmlands and getting all sorts of extra growth. And it's a really cool game that has this nice spread out income of actions, points, etc. I love the way that it works, how you're going to be escalating over time, and you're getting these bonuses early or later that you can continuously use or use for one-time awesome effects. I really like this system. I think it works really well, and it's a great evolution of the Fleet system. We also have some new expansions for Marvel Champions. We got Vision here, one of my most favorite heroes that come out in a long time. This one here is all about switching into different forms. He has these new phase shifting forms where he has this dense phase as well as the intangible mass form. And so based on whatever form he's in, it's going to affect some of his cards, including his alter ego card itself. And I love this. Vision's got a lot of power because he can draw a whole bunch of cards at the start of the game by flipping into his dense form right off the bat. So he's really easy to get his engine going, but he also has some really cool dynamic plays because a lot of his cards are locked into specific forms. So it's all about flipping not just to alter ego, but also from your intangible and dense forms. So there's a lot of cool interplay with this and with Vision as a whole. Great hero, one of my new favorites. Up next here we have Valkyrie. She has introduced some new Asgard cards to the game, and I love that because I'm a big Thor fan. But this one in particular here, she has this thing called the Marked. So I think it's called the Death Glow. So the Death Glow is going to go attached to a character, whether it be a villain or minions, and every time you slay or kill something with that Death Glow, it'll unattach, unexhaust Valkyrie, and then activate other effects based on Valkyrie's other cards. So very similar playstyle to Thor, where you want to have minions because you want to be triggering that Death Glow. She has some cards that plays into that. She has this really awesome card where you pick any minion anywhere in the enemy's deck and then draw 2 cards. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I love that card because you can do a lot of fun things with that, especially with some of the really cool aggression cards that rely on minions. She also just introduces a lot of new Asgard cards, which means you can play those in Thor, and it just made Thor even better. So many cool things here. I really like Valkyrie, though. I think she has a very different playstyle to Thor while still having that minion-centric playstyle. So cool stuff here with the Marvel Champions Valkyrie pack. Up next here, we have the It's a Wonderful Kingdom Kickstarter that also delivered. We got the Legendary Edition in that offers some extra modules and component upgrades, but the big thing here is it's a 2-player version of It's a Wonderful World. This has you doing an I Cut You Choose, where you're going to be playing to either the left side or the right side of this main board, and based on whatever side you pick, everything else will be left for the other player to potentially add to and choose from. So there's some cool choices here. You can play some cards face down, some negative effects, or you can play some mind games with the things you play, and it's all about knowing when to take specific piles. I had a great game of this where we had one person take 2 negative cards, and they knew they were there, but the amount of cards that had been piled up there was just so good, it just played out extremely well. I really like the modules in it as well. My favorite module so far is actually the Conquest module that comes in the Legends box. I think it's really cool. You're sending out these soldiers, and these soldiers become different production spots or give you passive bonuses, like extra hidden cards, being able to look at things, or more passive production, as well as points at the end of the game. A lot of things to love here in It's a Wonderful Kingdom, and one that I was really impressed with. Up next here we have Maracaibo Uprising, an expansion for one of my favorite games ever, and this game is incredible. Maracaibo Uprising is also incredible. So easy to include. It offers you new recessed player boards, new cards, new tiles, new special player abilities that are awesome. They work so well, and you get to draw 3 of them at the start of the game, and you can pair that with your hand and everything else, so you can get a plan from the get-go, or you can just use these basic sides where you flip them over and you have a compass and upgrade set on the other one. Also introduces a new campaign with new tiles. We played some of this yesterday, and it just makes me excited to play even more. I love playing Maracaibo, and this is just adding new cards, new interesting costs, new abilities. Oh, I love this game so much. So excited for just more Maracaibo. This is incredible. If you love it, get this. This is just a no-brainer expansion here. And that's the last game that we got, the new arrivals. Now we'll jump into the pre-orders. A first pre-order game here is for Final Girl Season 2, solo game that I really enjoyed from last year, and this just is more content for that. It was incredibly well done campaign here where you're having all of these new boxes to add. You have new Final Girls, you have new killers, new feature films that you're going to be adding, as well as storage boxes. And because it's reached so high in its funding level, we've got lots of cool exclusives and unlocks that we've gotten as well. So I'm really excited for these, and the one that I'm most excited for is actually the one for The Thing, where you're going to have these victims that go around the board here, and you're not sure who is who, but you have on the map here this organism board that you're going to be tracking each of them individually and trying to figure out who they are. So I really like this system, and I'm curious to see how it's going to employ it in the game with Terror at Station 28091, and this one is specifically for Final Girl Season 2 from Van Ryder Games. The next game that we pre-ordered here is Marvel Zombies. This is even bigger. Look at that, $5,714,000. Incredible. But this is offering the Zombicide experience in the Marvel setting. Lots of optional buys, lots of new changes to the zombie system where you play as the zombies themselves. And you're going to be consuming people and getting powers that way. There's no items, and I really like this idea here. You also have a hunger that you need to satiate, so it's going to be forcing you to make specific plays if you let it go on too long, which can put you in dangerous situations. So there's a lot of push your luck into this game as well that didn't exist in the normal version. So I really like these new additions, these new changes, and I like this passive abilities and passive upgrades. I also really love the idea that you have this additional way to play in the X-Men Resistance, where you play as the good guys fighting against the zombies, so you can have that extra experience. So if you want to kind of play that traditional style, but still using the Marvel characters, and then, oh my gosh, just the models in these look amazing. I really like this idea. I like this theme. I can't wait to see what else we unlock, but not a lot of days left on this. I'm really excited to dig into Marvel Zombies. Up next, we have Skytear Horde, a game that offers a lot of variety of modes, but ultimately it is going to be a solo or cooperative tower defense card game that's in the vein of something like Hearthstone with a bit of Marvel Champions or Magic the Gathering thrown in. I really like the system here where you're going to be getting passive income every round and then either using it or saving it for future rounds to play the cards to fight off these hordes. The production looks incredible as you can easily take all the different trays out and just get going right away. I love the modularity of the system here as you're going to be picking a hero and pairing it with some sort of horde that you're going to be fighting against, and then you're going to have wave after wave that you try to defeat. You're going to have to choose which of these things that you mitigate, so it gives me some vibes of something like Warp's Edge, but with that cool crafting system in the form of Marvel Champions where you're going to be using and prioritizing which cards you play based on the limited resources you have, but also that awesome gameplay of Hearthstone where you have lots of abilities when you play them and you're trying to manage that mana and the different effects. So I'm really excited to try this. I love the way that it looks like it scales, and it just looks like a really fun experience. I also like that the timer is the deck yourself, so every single card you play is a hugely valuable resource. I'm really excited to dive into this, and I think it just looks incredible altogether. The next game here is actually lumped in with that Skytear Horde pledge. This is Skytear, the original game that it's based off of, and this one here has you playing a MOBA style game. You're going to be sending champions, defeating minions, leveling them up, and hopefully defeating the enemy nexus to win the game. There's also these objectives that are going to be out on the board that you can attain instead, and I love how this is going to change up what you're thinking, your play style, and it's going to make every game feel different. The champions look really interesting and varied. I love that they have ultimate cards as well, and I like that the game in general has a great community around it. Not only are the player bases seem to be really friendly and very supportive, trying to continuously get people involved and get better and develop the game, but the team itself behind Skytear is creating other things for it. Things like solo scenarios, solo campaigns, ways to play it in other ways, which is going to get it played. And I'm excited for this. I think there's a lot to love here about Skytear, and it's one that I'm excited to give a try when it does deliver with Skytear Horde. The last Kickstarter here is for Viscounts of the West Kingdom, Gates of Gold, and Keeper of Keys. This is one that I was really on the fence about because I'm not the biggest fan of Viscounts of the West Kingdom. I really like the solo mode for Viscounts. It's a nice clean system and it's just kind of simple fun playing cards and moving symbols, but I always feel like I'm very much on a railroad. I'm buying cards for one specific symbol. You can't really branch out because you got to really do one thing well in this game, and I felt really much like I was railroaded in this game. But these expansions seem to offer things that incentivize other ways of play and allow you to use symbols from multiple venues. The biggest example of this are the chest tiles that you'll find at the Keeper of Keys expansions. The way they work is if there's a specific symbol on top of this chest in your card row, you can convert that symbol into something else. And I think that's so well done. It's going to allow you to actually buy cards that you may not normally buy because you know that you can turn them into specific symbols based on where they are on your row. That's also going to want you to actually move stuff around on your board, because what we found was generally you never actually benefited from shifting things on your board when you had the opportunity to do so. So it's really interesting. I think there's a lot of cool little modules in here with more impressive buildings, things that you can actually build that are going to be helpful in the form of your manuscripts, so little passive bonuses, as well as some extra interesting deck building options that didn't exist in the base game. So I'm excited to see what happens here with all of these new incentives, as well as the interplay of actually using the symbols interchangeably. So I'm excited to see what happens here, and I hope that it makes this game one that I'm more and more excited to play with other people, because right now it's one that I really just play solo. That's Viscounts of the West Kingdom, Keeper of Keys, and Gates of Gold. The last pre-order we're going to talk about is for Nova, the new Marvel Champions hero. And this is so neat because he is going to function all around these wild resources. So Sam Alexander and Nova here, they're going to be looking for a specific item called the Supernova Helmet. And this thing generates wild resources. But the core thing here is a lot of Nova's cards are going to get discounts based on if you use wild resources to pay from them. That is so awesome because this means that not only are you building an engine with things that can generate wild resources, but you're also going to be able to play a lot of powerful events in a single turn by actually using said wild resources. You also have Miss Marvel here that's going to allow you to return those free events that you're already using a bunch of, which is amazing. And then you have even new cool resource cards that don't count towards your hand size, so you'll have these extra wild resources that you can continue to pay with. This just sounds crazy and explosive, and it sounds like a lot of fun. I love this style of constantly playing powerful and important events every round. Just feels super good. I'm excited to try out Nova and Sam Alexander here and see if I can wear the Supernova helmet well. And that's everything that entered the library in January 2022. If you have any questions again about any of the games we talked about here, please let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think about these games. Are you excited for any of them? Do you share kind of the same opinions that we do? Or do you have a new hot take on these? Anything that we need to be adding to our library or that we missed that came out in January? I'd love to hear your opinions and thoughts. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching SideGame Strong.